All right, welcome to the discussion session of Tuesday, April 11th. We will start with a review of the agenda items for tonight's commission meeting. There you go.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tonight's agenda, we have the consideration of an ordinance authorizing a cable franchise agreement with Verizon. We talked about that in discussion session. We had a public hearing at our last commission meeting, and tonight we will consider the ordinance to authorize that agreement. We will also have the consideration of a resolution authorizing the execution of a revision to an adoption agreement for Mount Lebanon's retirement health savings account. So as part of our recently enacted labor contracts and in addition to the personnel manual for non-contract employees, certain wages are now allowed to be deposited into an established retirement health savings plan, an RHS. We will be scheduling a public hearing for the consideration of the pollutant reduction plan, TRP, and total maximum daily load, TMDL, for the Sawmill Run watershed. The previously approved plan from 2017 does not account for our recently constructed stream restoration project along Thornwood Drive, so we are submitting an amended plan to take credit for that work. For anyone that's interested, there is a copy at the customer service center desk in the lobby. It's available for public review if anyone has an interest. We will also have the consideration to purchase street furnishings for the Vibrant Uptown Streetscape project through the National Purchasing Cooperative Alliance. Mr. Milliron, our commercial districts manager, will present an overview of that in discussion session tonight. We'll also have the consideration for the award of the Mount Lebanon's North Garage repairs contract, which essentially is some precast concrete repairs, structural concrete repairs, membrane coating replacement, and caulk and sealing replacement. All exciting stuff. In addition, we will have the consideration for the award of the 2023 road reconstruction program, and also the award of the 2023 street maintenance, which is our resurfacing program.
Great, thank you. Next on the agenda, website update. So our Lily, Tom Young, Jeff Krakow. Krakow. Thank you.
You're 90% of people, I think.
Sorry about that.
Hey, good evening, and thank you for having us here to talk about the project status for the new municipal website. First, I want to let you know Nick Shallis is with us. He's running the meeting, so he's in the Zoom air. And Sandy Merrick from IT is also in the room as well. I wanted to introduce you to Jeff Krakoff. He is president of Krakoff Communications, and also Tom Young. He's an owner and technology director of Lava New Media. They are a Krakoff technology partner on this project. And they've been amazing. He's not able to attend tonight, but I also wanted to mention Scott Boland of Krakoff has been our skipper through this entire project. He deserves a lot of recognition for the amount of work that he's put into it. He's also a Mount Lebanon resident and a volunteer firefighter, and he has just been working through the details. It has been amazing. So I'll give you the timeline and the site release information shortly, but before we get started, for anybody just tuning in or just new to this project, I wanted to give a little overview of how we got here. Our municipal website is 26 years old. During its not the organization of it, but the material. Uniform, it was in uniform the first time I did it. During its existence, we have reorganized it many times, rebranded it, redesigned it, but we've never gone through and cleaned it out. I've likened it to being an attic. You know, you have your grandmother's wedding dress in there, but you've got to get through those 1980 soccer uniforms and a bunch of Beanie Babies before you can find what you want. In the early days of our website, we thought more is better. We wanted to be transparent. We put as much on there as possible. We figured somebody might need it and therefore they can find it. But what we didn't count on is when you get 2 decades worth of material on there, that there's just so much on there. You can't find what you need. It's thousands of documents, thousands of drafts of ordinances that never even got adopted, hundreds of old agendas, minutes, and FAQs from projects that are actually obsolete. So my priority for this version was to start from scratch. I called it zero-based websiting. Started all the way from the very beginning, went through every single one of hundreds of pages of content, Marie Kondo'd the whole thing. What do we want to keep?
Wow.
What do we want to give away? What do we want to throw away? And of the stuff we're keeping, where does it belong? Does it belong where we had it? Does it belong somewhere else? Will the public even want it? And if the public doesn't want it, maybe it's something that staff needs to keep, but the public doesn't need to necessarily have it facing them and clogging up their searches. So we went over every piece of content. Our web designers put together the website from scratch with the goal of making, everything was based on our priorities with the goal of making visits a great experience for everyone, especially those with disabilities. So the current iteration of the website was designed in 2015 and launched in 2016. As I mentioned, with content that was already several decades old. It's a Civic Plus site, which is a package we purchased from a company that does a lot of templates for governments and other organizations. And there would be many times when we would ask them for something and they would say, well, we can't do it. And to me, that should be a rarity and not a regularity. It's becoming a regularity. So staff prepared for a rebuild of the site in 2019 for a budgeted amount of $25,000. Earlier that year, the commission authorized a consultant to perform a communication study, and it was decided the site would wait until we received the results of that study. Of course, the website redo was a top priority. The project team was then convened with the commission champions Craig Grella and Andrew Flynn, and staff leads Nick and I. The COVID shutdowns in 2020 then forced us to redirect our attentions elsewhere. Then when the spring of 2021 came along, we redirected our efforts, restarted our project with the goal of the municipality of Mount Lebanon, which is to have a website that provides excellent service to our users, specifically residents, taxpayers, business owners, vendors, commissioners, overlapping government agencies and elected officials, service partners, community volunteers, job applicants, contractors, and visitors. Navigation should be seamless, format should be responsive, search is succinct, organizationally intuitive. You get the drift. We spoke with staff, with commissioners, and then we did something we hadn't done before. We convened a diverse focus group of residents and asked them what they wanted, asked them what their concerns with the current website was, what they wanted to see, and we put all of that information in the RFP when we went out looking for a contractor. Project was awarded to Craycoff for the 2022 budget year. Our original timeline was 25 to 34 weeks, but we all decided we wanted to include fire and police departments in the new site, so that added to the build. I also admit I have been super picky about things and I have requested extra revisions on items to be sure it's what our users need. The project team reviewed architecture, design drafts, and new features, chatbot, how do I section, and custom modules. I cannot say enough about Craycoff and Lava. They've been ridiculously flexible as we built this project. Every content problem I have given them has resulted in a lot of time and thought. They turned over the keys to us to start migrating content right before Christmas. And since that date, Sandy, IT, and I have been hand moving every piece of content to the site, consolidating pages, deleting dated material, and creating new sections. An example, wood chips were located under the rec department because you picked them up at the golf course. They were in the rec programs. So that's the sort of thing that we corrected, moved that over to residents, because it's obviously residents who are going to be wanting their wood chips. And there were dozens of situations like that. Craycoff has kept us in line with regard to best practices in accessibility and usability, a level of service we hadn't received before from Civic Plus. Sandy has uploaded hundreds of documents that we do want to keep, hundreds of hours of labor for which I am eternally grateful. And then when Stephanie Hackey in my office came back from her leave, she was able to jump in and assist with this task. The PIO art department has started migrating and assembling hundreds of photos and putting the art into the pages. So that's some of the work that's ongoing now. Now we're in the process of the final tinkerings. Admins are being trained. Recreation has started the process of consolidating 117 plus program pages for their programs. But it's critical for us that rec be comfortable with the site because, as you probably remember me saying, rec is the #1 thing that people come to our website for. Followed by overnight parking, employment, trash recycling information. So where do things stand? It is our plan to release the development site to that original focus group, to our senior staff, and to you all on or about May 8th. The Civic Plus site will still be up and that will still be our public facing site for everybody else. For 2 weeks during this testing phase, we'll take all of the feedback. We'll look at what we can do. We'll look at what we might want to do, and we'll look at things for some long-term projects. But this is all based on our framework of best practice and accessibility. We propose to go live on May 30th, 2023. That will give us the entire month of June to ensure we are at 100% usability before our contract with Civic Plus ends. This launch date will include all content in the fire department, but we won't be ready to have all of the police department up just yet. The PD site will remain current at their current location and we'll bring them over pretty shortly after. Then throughout the summer, we'll be adding other features such as when we just purchased a new E360 code database, which will put our 1,500-page PDF of our municipal codes into a database online, which will be searchable and linkable.
Wow.
Yeah,
that'd be
it's
great.
overdue. The most important point I should leave you with is when we launch this site, we're only launching it. We're not completing with it. It is built to grow, change, and evolve as our needs and software development advances. Our goal is to eventually have a site that auto customizes the view for each user, so we're not going to be done in May. We're just going to be taking our first steps into our new world of online communication. So now I'd like to turn it over to Jeff to talk about the project from his view.
If I may, just
Yeah.
before, you had mentioned earlier about cleaning out our attic.
Mhm.
You're still interested in transparency, so I want to
Correct.
make sure we didn't sort of bury the obvious, which is even though we're getting all the old crap out, we're still want to make sure, I think this is a great step towards being transparent to our residents. I just didn't want to bury that.
Correct. We're still going to be transparent. If anybody wants something, I'll give you an example. We still have the FAQ from the Deer Call from 2013. If for some reason somebody were to want that, we will still have it and we can
Right.
provide it for them. Staff will still be able to get to those documents and use them for decision-making and support. But the problem is if you went in and looked under and searched under Deer, that document is then clogging everything and you're probably not finding
Right.
today's
Searchability
information.
is not so great.
Right.
So with that,
Okay. I do have a few observations, and we're gonna have Tom walk us through different parts of the site so you can see it. But as you mentioned, it is just the sheer volume of pages and data, definitely a challenge. I think it was also an opportunity to also figure out, maybe it's less about how the township departments and offerings are organized to how do I want to, what do I want to find and what makes sense where I can find it, whether I'm a resident, a potential resident, a business owner. So we definitely spent a lot of time on architecture. I think we went probably 14 rounds, maybe even on that, and got it to a really good place. And again, important to know it's a custom designed website, which means we looked at every type of page and subpage as to what elements need to be on it. We have more than 24 different templates that are part of the system that can be used. And I think a key fact, you mentioned searchability, extremely robust search function, number one. And I know it's already indexed about 2,500 pieces of data that have been added to it. And typically in the past, a best practice is don't put a lot of PDFs out there because it can't be searched. This search will be able to do that.
Like an inline PDF,
Pardon me?
inline PDF, like not just the title, but the contents inside the PDF.
Correct.
Okay,
Typically, it had to be on a page for the search to find it.
yes.
But again, I think that's an interesting feature of it all. But we're here to answer any questions. Tom, if you want to share some of the areas of the site.
Okay. Well, like Laura had mentioned, this is currently on a secure development server behind a password. This will become the upcoming live website when we're ready to launch. Like I said, currently it's behind a password. We don't want public internet access, facing anything like that, search engines indexing any of this. So it's sort of like our area sandbox to create the website and collaborate as a team on all the various sections. So this is the home page, and right from the get-go, you have access to a few quick things. MyLebo, if you want to jump there. We have a very simple menu that I think really simplifies, the previous menu that was on the previous website. So you can get to all the major sections. We have access to search here. We also have access to search right below the fold.
Nice.
We have a how do I slide out. So this is going to be a database of questions that Laura and her team are going to supply us with that, common questions that the community has asked over the years. We have data on that, and we know, what are the most often asked questions.
Love it.
So this will be sort of like a mini search engine, if you will. It'll enable the user to ask questions and then match those to the answers that the municipality might have. So.
And we're redoing our character branding statement there, the community with character, that's being redone as part of the comprehensive plan. So as soon as we have that new verbiage, we'll just pop that in there.
Like I mentioned, we also have a global site search. So this will all be indexed. It's look ahead. So you can type in phrases and get immediate results. This is right now, at least for the next few days, the search results are a work in progress. We're working with Laura's team to calibrate what's more important, or, what a visitor may want to see first, based on search results. You can see I can quickly click there. It'll take me into the interior of the website. Going down the homepage, we have a what's trending section. So this will be latest information, events that may be happening in the area. Obviously, what you see here, this information might be quite dated. It's development content, but we want to time this coinciding with the launch of the site. That this information will be up to date and allow you to feature what's happening around the community. Little branding here for an intro into the about section.
I think it's important to mention too, there's a call to action on almost every page, whether it's to see something, do something, which is a little different from the previous site.
Every section landing page, and what I mean by landing page is, the about, the residents, parks and recreation. They all have this presentation of what we call cards. So these are sort of like a concierge into the section to help people find information more quickly. Rather than searching or, going through the Explore menu here on the right. So these are basically introductions into that section.
Nice.
Just go back to the homepage here. We also have a calendar of events data pulling onto the homepage. This is always going to be what's upcoming, different meetings, commission discussion sessions.
And the Zoom links will all be on the homepage so that hopefully if somebody's just wanting to pull into a meeting, they can go right into it.
Awesome.
You can also quickly browse the calendar here. So what we've been doing is planning on populating events as we coincide with the launch in June. So that's why you start to see as I browse through, the events start appearing. I can click and see what's happening on July 5th. I can also view a full calendar. If I go here, this is the calendar landing page. You can search for events if you're looking for something specific. We have two main calendar views. We have what we call a list view, and that's this upcoming presentation of what's in the near future as far as the events are concerned. So the various meetings and community events. You can also switch as a visitor to a month view. So if we go forward here to May, you can see we have some events that have passed. We get to June. And you can roll over to see specific event details.
So is that where if you click on it, then there'd be the Zoom link right here?
Yes.
Okay, great.
The Zoom link would be presented here, and as Laura mentioned, they'll also be on the homepage for quick access.
It's an aside, but we put meeting agendas there as well
Correct. There'll be a link to the meeting agenda page.
for boards and commission, not
Okay.
just.
Not only there, but it'll also link back to the board page. So let's say you go to the traffic board page, on there will be a link to the meeting as well.
So most events will be tied to a board. So those events we can feature on the individual boards and authorities pages. So the plan is to, if you access, say, the traffic board, for example, at the top of the page, we'll be pulling in meetings from the calendar that are upcoming or ones that have just passed. If you'd like to review the minutes and the videos.
That's a session we'll be redoing pretty quickly. It's okay.
Should make it easier.
What was on the recreation calendar?
Recreation calendar, I don't think.
Nothing's populated yet, but this is
Okay.
the way for you to sort it. So you can click on there. That'll probably be sign like deadlines and dive in movies and stuff like that. It won't be every single thing every day, but it'll be a better
I was just
overview.
curious because I saw it up there.
What's the rec login experience gonna be? When I go to register,
Sure.
sign my kid up for T-ball.
Well, the actual registration is a third-party software. So
okay.
what we handle on our side is the description of the facilities and the programs, and then a link that goes to the third-party.
So there'll be a
registration.
link into, we'll need a login for that. It's different than my Levo.
Correct.
Do you want me to show the section in progress or maybe show the?
I think show the done one, just because I'm not sure how far they've gotten.
Okay.
We literally just trained the rec people on Thursday, so I'm not sure how far they've
Maybe,
gotten.
yeah, no, it's okay if you're not
But
ready
we
to
have an
send
image
that.
of what it's gonna look like when it's
Yeah,
done.
we'll see it in May, so don't worry about it if you don't have it ready yet.
Okay. Yeah, well, just know there'll be a page of programs and classes. We've already defined what those program categories are. Like Laura said, right now, they're still building this section out
Okay,
with all of the various programs. But to show you what this will look like once the content population is completed,
Mhm.
I'll try to zoom in here.
nice.
We have the various program categories and the
Awesome.
programs listed underneath each one. And then clicking into a specific program, we really honed in on the dance program first because it does have a lot of events and classes. This is what you'll see on the detail page
Nice.
for each program.
And that information will be up year round, right? Not just when the program, for the seasonal programs, for example, aquatics. We'll get to see it.
I mean, it's based on their availability because they have to be able to update it when it's when it's off
When
and
it's
it's not
relevant.
updated, it will be taken off the site. So people shouldn't be running into old information.
Yeah, okay.
So, yeah.
It's important to note that all this information is manageable by the rec team, so they have access to edit everything you see here on the screen, from the prices to the specific class details. Where do these register links go to? You mentioned the login system. These would likely connect there. And also include descriptions, additional information.
When I click on that, like ballet acro, does it take me to sign up for exactly ballet acro, or does it just take me back to a general registration?
Takes you back to their homepage because you have to sign in.
Okay,
If it
so
took
I
you to
have to
the
click all the
acro
way
sign in,
through.
you'd have to go back to log in. And that's just the way their third party software
They
works.
can't, yeah, they can't like do a sign in and then remember where I clicked and then point me to that location. Okay, so you have to find the acro again.
Back on the homepage really quick, we also have a list of quick links. So these are always accessible on their own page as well as on the home page. So if you're looking for something specific, some people like to browse via search, others like to point and click. So we want to serve both those audiences.
And those are our top pages from our Google.
Yeah. A preview of the fire department section.
Good.
Yeah, can you go back to fire? Do you still get the Mount Lebanon homepage link back when you go to the fire department? Do you have a consistent header?
Yeah, good catch. So there are some specific changes that occur when you, not only the fire department, but this is also how the police department section will work. Once you're in this section, this
Still
now,
that top bar though, that very top,
You go-
it's consistent.
Right, you should be able to click on.
Yeah,
Right
now
there.
take me back to the
That
home.
takes you to the homepage.
Yeah.
Awesome.
not only just the logo that links back to the homepage, but we also include this return to departments, which isn't featured on other sections of the site, but specifically with fire and police, we wanted a quick way to get back to the department's landing page.
You've also got the breadcrumbs on the top left. So different people like to navigate different ways.
Here, we can pull up the public documents.
This is an accordion, sorry. There's very few of them, but this is a case where we need to do one.
So everything's organized by a specific category, and you have some iconic cues here to let you know what sort of resource it is, whether it's we have a chain link icon that directs you to an external website. That's why we have a indicator here that you're leaving mountlebanon.org. We also have icons indicating the file type, so you know that this is a PDF that you're downloading.
Show them the commissioner's page.
Sure.
Stroke their ego.
You're on. It's what we've all been waiting for.
Okay.
So there's a listing here and then I click the details. Where we can include a bio, also all the contact information.
So you're number one.
Oh, I know it.
That's what I was thinking.
It's nice for the warden district locator. on.
Mhm.
That's good.
Mhm.
A lot of times people don't know.
Oh, most of the time.
Oh,
people
the
know.
most.
Yeah.
You're really clear. I'm going, what word?
Is that?
Hmm.
I don't know if I'm more excited by just the refresh or what it makes possible next. Right, yeah, it's clearly, it looks fantastic. You guys have done a fantastic job, everybody involved. But it does make me start thinking about, oh, well, then we can do this, and then we can do this.
The thing is, we can't,
Right,
we
exactly.
couldn't the way we were, so,
Right.
but there's still some software between here and there, so there'll be.
More budget requests. Put your words in your mouth.
It's a little person icon.
Mhm.
That, I believe will link to the accessibility statement.
Okay.
So that's actually a good segue. I wanted to mention that as a development team, over the next couple of weeks, our big focus right now is calibrating the searches. So the how do I feature the global site search, making sure that you're getting relevant results in those searches, and also doing accessibility checks. Because now that all this content has come into the website, accessibility is not just a technical do this and it's done. It's an ongoing process with design, content, all of those things. So we want to make sure that once all the content's into the site, we'll then do accessibility checks to make sure that it's properly tagged and accessible and available to the widest possible audience. So,
And what's in your settings?
so we have a link back to the home. Yeah. We'll have a printer friendly style sheet. So this will just launch a print function.
Yeah.
In the page.
And that image is us, right? It's one of our residents. It's not stock.
No, we're not using very much stock at all
Okay,
on here. The
awesome.
only time we're using stock is if we're trying to increase our diversity, because sometimes it's hard to get diverse photographs.
Okay, so very few stock. But this is a real.
I'm not sure we'll use that image. I think there's better ones out there. We've been
I
kind
like
of
it.
looking for an iconic, but we can also
Yeah.
change them a lot
You said,
easier.
I should talk about the guy on the bike.
That one kind of didn't, we were looking for one with a house in it. So
Oh,
just because again, to kind of
Right.
communicate the.
Yeah.
I like they're using the streets for multi-purposes.
Doesn't
I
look
like
wide enough for one of our streets.
It's an alley.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Hey.
Any other questions?
I was curious in terms of how we're pulling our GIS into the website.
We haven't started quite yet. That will be a feature of the MyLebo where that will link to your home address at some point. Right now, one of the big places that's used is in the street. We haven't put in the new street program. The street program will have the interactive map there. Also, the Arboretum, we're not finished with that yet, but as a requirement of our level 1 Arboretum, every tree in the Arboretum is mapped to GIS. So we're kind of pulling GIS into subject matter as it's appropriate, but at some point it will be in the dashboard that will be connected to your sign-in.
I guess my question there is, are we just linking out to ArcGIS? Or are we using some mapping? Native mapping tool that's pulling the data in from ArcGIS?
It's both. I mean, right now we're using things that have been supplied to us from Gateway and from our GIS, but that's where we're going to be expanding.
It's like the word map locator,
Right.
right? The current, you go to a PDF and I'm like, don't like that. I know there are better ways to do it. It takes time to, figure all that out.
Yeah. No, that's something that Rudy and I can sit down and hammer out ways to expand on that.
Rudy loves GIS.
Well, I think it looks great. Thanks for the super hard work.
We've had a great team. Again, I can't say enough about our consultants and about Sandy. It's gonna be good.
It's awesome. Any other questions from the commission? Great, well, thank you for the presentation. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Next on the list, street furniture. Eric, come on down.
Near and dear to my heart. Like to sit on the streets.
Good evening. I have to get a picture of you sitting on the street for the website.
I know, exactly, right.
Buy the new trash can
Right.
And the bike.
with the mic on the bike rack.
Well, that's gonna be a little hard for me to follow up, tech the trash, but
Pause.
let's roll.
Stop.
Well, good evening, Commission, and I think for the last two packet cycles, a memorandum and some additional information was included regarding street furnishings for the Vibrant Uptown project. So, we wanted to wait till the project was nearing substantial completion, before we got to this level, and I feel pretty confident that we're at that point. Obviously, there's some lead time once any units are ordered. I think we're at that window where we can do that. And I've talked to Mr. Supel, and I think we have some room at the yard. So when things are delivered,
Okay, store 'em.
we can store them
If they're not quite ready to be placed.
if they're just not quite ready. But there are obviously sections that are. So without further ado, I'll just kind of discuss briefly the process and then a little bit about the units. And then if anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to field those. But as just dialing back to the year of our Lord 2020, ancient times, we went through a design process on this, and with La Quattrobonsi, and we had a design team, and we reviewed many aspects of things, one of which, of course, was street furnishings. So it was August of 2021 when we had a meeting in this very room, and we heard a presentation from La Quattrobonsi about their recommendations for street furnishings that would mirror and match and parallel the design intent of the Vibrant Uptown project. And those images were in the packets, and I'll discuss those in a few moments. But everybody was pretty pleased with all the units that were spec. There had been discussion, about solar trash compacting units.
I remember
It was a long time ago, but yes, that
Chargeable bikes, e-bike stations.
all of these
What do we do?
wonderful
Yeah.
conversations. And there's still wonderful conversations. But
me to shut up regularly.
no, I stayed moving on. But so I mean, those are great, but there's a lot of still snags with the technology and things of that nature. So what we wanted to do was find something that not only complemented the streetscape, but complemented the community of character that we just were reviewing in the cyber world. So I think Dan McDowell and La Quattrobonsi did a pretty decent job of honing in on some units that people were excited about. So we had that conversation in August, and then we went on site in Lawrenceville to take a look at some things where you could sit on a bench and poke a can and all this kind of stuff. And so we did that, and again, no major red flags. So just moving into the units, and I can talk more about design intent, but something I'll say about the trash unit, there are two. There's the total order is 50, so there's 25
Okay,
trash, 25 dedicated recycling, and they're not going to be those little cylinders that are out there now that people stick their gum on and this type of thing. This is a solid committed unit. So the trash receptacle will say landfill to be sure people understand where their deposit is going. It does have a lid, and while that may not seem like such a big deal, it is. It rains a lot here, and wet garbage can be stinky garbage. So it provides that protection. And what I'm particularly like about this new style The current units that we have are fluted, they have the. So if somebody misses the can, a gum wrap or what have you, that falls into that area, which then eventually goes onto the sidewalk. So this prevents that, this design. It's a solid casing around the trash can. And then at a truly functional level, it has a latch, which the trash haulers like. They pop the latch, open the door, empty the can, put it back in, shut the door, go to the next. The recycling cans will be sort of an ocean blue. That's sort of the international color of recycling. And they'll also say recycling. So there'll be a visual cue as well as letters that form a word.
But is it
say-
identical, like with lid and
Yes.
stuff? Okay, they're identical, just color and then a word.
That's correct.
Great.
And
So we're foregoing the hole of a certain size for the.
yes,
Why the can?
yeah, that's one of the other issues with the cans we have now. Those were, if I remember, memory serves me well, Mr. Supel may have more information, but I know Allegheny County Parks had bought a series of recycling units, which is what these are. And, you know, it was probably a mass purchase at some point. I think they had extras and then they started dispersing them. I'm not sure if that's how we received them or not, but it's great to have any recycling unit out there, but they do sort of limit what you can do and, you know, in that respect. So this will be, we're committed to recycling. I mean, this is designed to fit into the streetscape. So that's those units. So again, there'll be 25 of each, 50 total, dispersed throughout the district appropriately. The bench, currently, we expect to have 3 benches. Going back to the design of the streetscape, you know, there's the bench seating there. We're now, there was always a plan to have 3 benches,
Portable benches, yeah.
these benches, and that's what these are. So there's one that's expected to be in front of what's currently Citizens Bank, as well as 2 in front of the municipal building. More could be added as we go on. We still, just as a reminder, we still have Vibrant Uptown 2 planning yet for this year. So a lot of that's gonna be looking at placemaking and these sort of accessory pieces. So that could be a discussion for that day.
So we might want to order more benches in the future, but I mean, that's what
Perhaps.
we're getting now. We'll see how
Exactly.
where they're needed.
Mhm. And again, it just is a refresher, you know, in front of the municipal building was really reimagined as more of a plaza, as a gathering place. So after a commission meeting, residents can gather in front of the municipal building and have a conversation or during the farm market or these types of things. So they're comfortable benches. And again, from an aesthetic perspective, match the trash cans and the curvilinear nature of the streetscape project. Bike racks are important. You know, we all know that we're really embarking on enhancing various modes of transportation throughout the municipality, and cycling is one of those. We had racks out there. They were what I will call the posted hitch type. I mean, you could put your bike there or you could put a mule. These racks, you could also put a mule on it, but they're a little more again, the aesthetic, the design is meant to complement the totality of the streetscape project. There's something unique. We didn't want to have a punch listed bike rack that you see everywhere. We wanted something that was unique and special to the Uptown District. And what was important, I know very much for Commissioner Rainey, but for many members of the design group was, you know, public art and finding creative ways to introduce public art to the public realm. These allow that. So you don't see it in the photographs that were included in your packet. But there is an opportunity to put a Mount Lebanon branding panel in these, but also you can imagine fabricated art of some sort, let your imagination run wild. But you know, there's
I'm already thinking about these anchors, so the mules don't want.
these are anchored, the bench to some degree, it's very heavy, but could be anchored. The trash receptacles are not, but nobody is going to be lifting these things up. If you've ever tried to move one of these out here.
Yeah.
Yeah, you better be all cooking in the hallway. So these really do add that, to the street scape. So there's currently, in this particular request, 6 bike racks to be dispersed throughout the district. I've already had a specific request from Scott, our tenant at East End Brewing. He's famous for his keg rides, so cycling is important to him. I won't get into that. That's a complete tangential conversation.
Insanity.
But it attracts hundreds of
Yeah, it
people. It's
does.
massive, but, so cycling is important to him. He would like a rack, and that also is an area that we want to give special attention to as a placemaking gathering node. So we would see a rack there. So 6 of these racks, 3 of these beautiful benches, and 50 of these receptacles for trash and recycling is what's on the menu.
What about tables and chairs, like for Clearview Commons?
That is not in this.
Okay, and then this round.
And let me explain what, at least the reasoning for that, because I know that's important. We have VU2 coming, and that's really gonna be looking at Clearview Common, and again, these placemaking notes. I mean, whatever we would purchase would be again in line with anything else that we've been doing. But I
So,
think
yeah, V2,
we want to think that through and
Yeah.
where they go, Clearview Common. They've been, I mean, if
but
anybody.
very successful.
Very, today there, I wanted to go sit and have something to eat in Clearview Common, and there was, all the seating was taken.
So can we
that's
keep
good.
keep what's out there now, and then eventually when we do V2, we'll reimagine the whole thing.
I don't know of any problems we've had with this furniture. We've had problems with furniture, well, other than they've sometimes have been stacked like Jenga. And
Forever. It's not gonna last
other than
forever.
that, I mean, there have been some issues, some of the kids that, do what kids do and things. But, most of the furniture is still there. And then again, this furniture was bought at Target. And was really meant as a stopgap during COVID,
Yeah.
as an opportunity. So that's when the
The
partnership
partnership purchased it, right?
purchased it,
So they
and
put
it's
tables out for people.
was not meant really for what it's being used for at this
Uh-huh.
length of time, in my
So
opinion.
it's due to reimagine it, but it's not what this is.
Right, but I would admit, Dan McDowell is aware of that already, that's something we want to do. And with the cost savings that we're seeing,
Alright.
there is a remainder. The commission had budgeted a $1.34, and this, the tab is coming in at a $1.05, $1.04, something like that.
Any other questions for her?
What's gonna happen over at the clock tower as far as seating? We're not purchasing anything there.
Not currently. I would imagine that again as a VU2 type thing. I
Yeah.
mean, there's expanded seating there with the
With the benches.
bench seating, so there's
Yeah.
ample bench seating. And East End Brewing will have their own
Yeah. that's-
special seating that's segregated for them,
Okay,
but there's great opportunity there to sit
And relax.
and relax
Enjoy yourself.
and enjoy an ice cream cone, a slice of pizza.
How many benches are we removing right now from what's on, Washington, and where are we gonna put those? It's okay if we don't know.
Many, I'd say there's probably Rudy may know, and I'll throw him on the spot, 20.
Okay, so we're taking out 20 portable
That's
benches.
guesstimate.
We don't really have a plan yet.
Well, again, I don't want to speak for Rudy, but we do attempt to, I'll say, repurpose
Mm-hmm.
that type of furniture where we can.
Yeah.
So if we can utilize it in one of the parks or somewhere else,
Yeah.
we will do that.
Yeah, just don't put it back on Washington Road.
We
Sorry.
can lean on the Parks Board if they have any like areas that in particularly need of a bench or something.
All right, anything else?
Handsome, clean, simple, perfect architecture words. Works.
And those are words I like, and I believe these reflect that.
They do, very much. Timeless.
Timeless.
It'll look good 30 years.
Well, yeah.
Right, great, thank you,
As
Art.
long as there's no dump stuff.
Can't promise that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next on the agenda, the advisory board transition plan, Ian
Oh, my God.
McKee.
That's the reaction I used to get when they'd say, and now here's Mr. McGill to talk about zoning.
We can talk about that too. That's not what I'm prepared to talk about tonight, but I can always talk. So, per per the commission's request, since we have approved our transition plan for, or sorry. no, not
Ordinance.
approved.
An ordinance.
We approved the ordinance, yes, thank you.
Yeah, we have to.
Sorry, I was moving things around on my screen here. I can see everything I need to. Okay, so since we have now approved the ordinance amending the advisory board structure, which will take effect in just under a year, 355 days. Actually 56 days, it's a leap year next year. So on April 1st, 2024, this will take effect. Will be here sooner than we think. So then will be now very soon.
Quite that extra day, yes.
Yes, despite the extra day, it will come very quickly. So the commission's request was for a transition plan. And as I started to put together my recommendations for how we transition, I also started to think about how the boards would operate once we make that transition. So the two sort of key components of our 5 new advisory boards, and I'll back up for a second. So the commission may recall seeing these symbols as part of our commission retreat that we did a few weeks ago to kind of symbolize the 5 advisory boards between community engagement, mobility and transportation, parks and recreation, resiliency, or sustainability / economic development, however we want to call it. I'll call it resiliency for, to be a little bit. Brevity. Yes, thank you. And financial management. So you will see these symbols again, often. So the 2 key components of the board transition are not only the transition plan of how do we get from where we are now to April 1st of next year and what needs to be done in those 356 days, but also how the new boards operate once that transition occurs. So I put a few documents in your packets that were my sort of drafts of those. So I'm happy to field any questions, comments on those, as well as kind of talking through some of the highlights because, for our large viewing audience at home, I don't know if they want to be put to sleep by me going through my 26 pages worth of transition plan document. So I tried to spice this presentation up with a little bit of color. So on the transition plan, which is where I'll start.
Because you have 40 minutes doesn't mean you have to use the line.
I'll do my best. I'll leave you a couple to talk about.
Ice cream.
Thank you.
So
And
on the.
door trim.
So on the transition plan of how we get from now to where we want to be, I broke this out between what we want the current boards to do, what the commission needs to do, and what municipal staff is going to do. And those are sort of color coded and delineated, not a true Gantt chart, but close enough. So on really what the current boards need to do is make sure they have a complete list of all of their current duties, tasks, functions, annual processes, whether that be like the Parks Advisory Board goes out annually and it does an inspection of each park, or other processes that each board goes through. Under the list of duties and functions, I know the Historic Preservation Board, anytime there's a request for a cell tower or something like that, it has to go to them for a historic concurrence letter to say if it's proposed to be in the district or not. So we want the boards to take some time, which is why this chart starts in August. So take some time between now and August to go through, think through all those things they typically do in a year, start making those documents, and then even as things come up and they're like, oh, this is something we do every year, start to write those things down. Make sure that they're working with the staff liaison so that all of the documents that they have, all of these lists, everything is digitized and uploaded to OneDrive, because that is the shared folders that we're using as the municipality. And that will make it very easy then to share all this historical knowledge with the new boards, once they take effect, because we can give the new boards access to the shared folders from the previous boards so they can go back and look at things.
All right, give us a deadline. That's what we need.
What's on there?
I mean, August 1st, August 30th.
Yeah, I think I said in my memo, by August, for the board, identify the current duties. By November,
So by August 1st. That's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah,
You said August to allow the board's time to meet in the month of August. so
yeah, I could,
Right.
Whenever the different boards meet.
and there's some boards that only meet quarterly right now, so I wanted to give them enough time. And also, since this was my draft of a plan, I kind of wanted the commission's thumbs up on this before I went and passed it off to the staff liaisons to say, hey, here's what you need your boards to do by this certain date. So, yeah, in the shorter memo, the one on the transition plan, I think, section 2A had a bunch of bolded dates on it.
Yes,
That listed out
Yes.
when things.
yeah, I think sports could do by sometime in August, but they don't meet in the summer, so.
Right, so by
Figure it
the,
out.
by the end of August, it's.
The guy with the traffic has a similar problem.
Okay.
And really, as long as those documents are started and uploaded to OneDrive, they can always go in and make amendments to them, but I just want to make sure that it's something in their head that they're thinking about. It's like, oh, hey, this is something we do every year. We need to make sure this task continues to be done. Or this annual process continues to be done.
Let me ask a question on that.
Yes,
So I understand the rationale behind compiling the list of current duties, tasks and functions. I'm looking at that maybe a little more as a historical repository of what they're currently doing. I think that the reorganized boards will then make sort of their own determinations.
Yeah.
And version of what should continue and how it should. Just to make sure that I'm on the same page.
yes.
I would agree 100%. Yeah, yeah, I think, well, as I think about this, right, there are some things that we want to ensure are preserved. Some things could
Some
just
things need to be
disappear.
Constantly.
Right.
There's that starting list to say,
Yeah.
because it's the long list, then we start editing from there.
Right.
Say, okay, delete, or we want to add this, but I think we'll probably have to start with the list that Ian's talking about, then we just go
Yeah.
to the next step.
Yeah, because I think as we think about this, right, setting these boards on a path that is in alignment with the comp plan and with commission's objectives. Right, that I think is going to be important. And so having these lists of saying this is what they do now, and I know there will be things where I'm like, I had no idea.
Right,
Right.
sure, yeah.
And we want to go, oh, that's important.
Yeah.
You know, they're doing that, that provides commission value or that provides staff value. How do we preserve that? How do we ensure that that is staying baked into their remit? You know, through the process. So, yeah, but Keith, I agree with you. I don't want to keep it all per se.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it has value, again, for that sort of historical repository.
Yeah.
So that we can identify those important functions that we want to continue, but then the boards
Right.
themselves will
Yeah.
sort of.
Change, yeah.
Yes.
Great.
Yes, and I was actually planning on talking a little bit more about that in a few slides, so.
Sorry.
That's okay. No problem. Happy to be flexible. I have 30 minutes until the boards and authorities report, so.
I'm gonna use every damn one of them. I
You're
heard
stuck
that.
with me.
You hear the clock.
So really, the key points for the commission though, is on the transitional seats.
Right,
And this was a discussion that we had previously, on what if the commission wants to, you know, the commission can offer transitional seats, the commission could not offer transitional seats. This discussion on transitional seats really started there are people right now whose terms are appointed beyond 2020, beyond March 31st, 2024. There are some that expire in 2025, some that expire in 2026. The conversation started you know, if the commission wanted to honor those appointment lengths, would all of those people be able to stay on, or would we have to drop some of them when we made the transition? The way we've done our appointments with this most recent round of doing a 1-year appointment to fill seats, there are currently 22 seats that would last beyond that transitional date of April 1st, 2024. So if the commission wanted to, they could offer all of those people transitional seats. And I kind of detailed how that could work. Yes,
There is,
But-
I think 15 spots here. Each board.
Yeah.
I was like, year one, I was just year one, but okay.
right. So they're in theory could be offered, and you know, when the commission makes appointments, could kind of tweak the new term lengths as well.
I think I kind of detailed that without going into too much detail and rehashing everything that I wrote in these 26 pages. There's the ability of the commission to do that, but if there are people that the commission does not want to offer transitional seats to, you always have that decision that you don't have to offer. So you can do whatever you want. I just wanted to show you that it was in theory possible. So we also talked about this overall structure of the new advisory boards. This was somewhat detailed in the ordinance that the appointed members of the boards each board would have 9 residents on the board, appointed to 3-year terms. Those would be the voting members. Those voting members would elect within their group a chair, a vice chair, and then the appointed members would also then be chairs of any subcommittees or ad hoc committees. So if the board makes any subcommittees, one like a liaison person or an associate member can't be the chair of that subcommittee. The board member has to be the chair of the subcommittee. But the subcommittee could have other people on it, just, yeah. And then 1 commission liaison per board, which works out very nicely because we have 5 commissioners and 5 boards. I also gave you my idea for a potential rotation plan, which you don't have to follow, but I just threw it out there. That's in, I think, appendix C, appendix C of the big policy and procedures document, which just my idea, but of how you could rotate between boards so that in a 5-year cycle, each board would have a liaison from each ward, and the commission president position would also rotate between each board over that same 5-year cycle. But like I said, just an idea, you don't have to listen, or you could. Staff liaisons, the idea was to have 2 per board so that there's some backup there. Liaisons are appointed by the municipal manager. Additional liaisons to kind of carve out a position for a liaison from the school district. I know we've had some initial conversations with the school district and they want to get more involved and more in tune with what we're doing as a municipality. So having a liaison position on each board available to someone from the school district, I think makes sense.
Nice.
And then right now, we do have some boards that have liaisons to other advisory boards. So like the Historic Preservation Board has a liaison to the Planning Board. The Planning Board has a liaison to the Economic Development Council. That, any number of those positions that, other boards want to have liaisons that just go and attend the meetings, we could have those. And then associate members would be non-voting members of the board, and annually, when the commission does board appointments, the commission could also designate a community organization or multiple community organizations to be an associate member of a certain board. So I think that was appendix A of my, nope, appendix B, I was wrong. Appendix B of my big document, I just threw out a couple ideas that I had of some potential associate members, but that would be up to the commission to designate those. One that kind of makes sense would be like the Mount Lebanon Nature Conservancy having an associate member position for the Parks and Rec Board, so that that person could attend the board meetings, take part in conversations, but just wouldn't be able to vote. And that's also, I think, a good way to potentially over the long term build a pipeline for future board members, because if it's like, hey, I'm already attending all these meetings, I might be interested in sitting on the board and voting now. And also it connects the community organizations that we have better with the advisory boards as well. Okay, so I did mention also that we have 9 members on each board. Each one has a 3-year term. So we'd have a cycle where 3 positions on each board would expire each year. So we'd have a pretty clear rotation of positions across the board.
And then they also serving 2 terms, 2 3-year terms.
They would be,
Can
yeah,
serve 2 terms.
Up to,
Up
yeah.
to.
Next,
Two terms, then they had to take a year off, and then they can be appointed again.
yes.
I did read the damn thing.
Yeah, yes.
You didn't have homework.
And I retained it for
Yeah.
everything.
I read it 3 or 4 times. I could not put it.
It's just so darn exciting. I also found a typo.
extra
Penalties.
credit.
Page 3, you have under selection of officers at the reorg meetings are in May. It's April every once.
Okay,
It's just good.
okay. That was
This
a,
typo is probably created by one of my comments.
Really?
Well,
Yeah.
because my comment was,
Yeah.
if we are going to bring new board members on in April,
Yeah.
right? They start in April.
Yeah.
You want to push that reorg meeting back to May to at least give them 1 meeting to get acclimated to the board.
That's the onboarding time.
So that was his typo. I created his typos.
Thank you for following on this work. So I will fix it. Yeah, yes. Okay, so duties and responsibilities. This was what I kind of referenced earlier. So big picture commission responsibilities, defining goals and objectives for the advisory boards. Reporting, and by that I really meant the reporting that you do in discussion session where you have the time to report on your board and authority activities, just to kind of report to the whole group what's going on, and then obviously making appointments to those boards. I had a few suggestions, I'll say, for ideas about how appointments could work. I phrased them as goals with regards to equity of appointments across where people live across
Yeah.
boards. I phrase them as goals because right now I know the commission sometimes gets locked into, oh, the ordinance says we have to have one from each ward, so we can only pick someone from the 3rd ward to fill this seat, or we can only pick someone from the 4th ward to fill this seat. So I phrase it as a goal so that the commission can ignore it anytime they want. If they have someone really good that they want to put on, you don't have to
Thank
listen to it, but as a general idea of working towards that general goal. Staff liaison responsibility, obviously ensuring compliance with laws and regulations, setting the agendas for the meetings, all document storage and retention, as well as onboarding and orientation for new board members. And then advisory board responsibilities, I think this is what Mr. McGill and Commissioner Flynn were talking about earlier. Making sure that the boards comply with the goals and objectives of all adopted plans. So I capitalized plans intentionally there, because that would be the comp plan, the climate action plan, active transportation plan, whatever other plans that we have that are adopted, as well as other goals set by the commission. Obviously, we just did a fairly lengthy goal setting retreat, where we talked a lot about big picture goals and objectives. So that would all feed into this of a responsibility of the advisory board to comply with those goals. Attendance at meetings, obviously issuing an annual report on what the board did, adopting an annual work plan, which I know some boards do now, some boards don't. So I think having each board have an annual work plan would help shape their work. And that also kind of feeds into the idea of this list of tasks. The commission can set goals, objectives, plans, and say, hey, these are some of the tasks we want your board to do now, and how the board fits that into their annual work plan. Then we'll at least have more documentation of this is what the board is working on this year.
Right.
And these are the steps we're working towards, as well as capital plan and budget requests.
I have a question. Well,
Yeah.
so the annual work plan ideally would be set in January, but we get new board members in April. I think that's fine. And then I just wonder, right now, some boards do their reappointments, their reorg, their, appointment of president in January. And now we're talking about May. I see January is better because you're gonna have more senior people to help with that decision. A new person is probably not gonna jump on and in their second meeting apply for president or vice president. So, I don't know.
While we're going through this, we're
Yeah.
trying to get input from the commission in terms of.
I don't know, we go through our reorg every January, right?
to do it January.
The same time people are seated is when the reorg happens. For us, why would it happen differently for a board?
And my thought too was, if I may, everything kind of backs up from the budgeting process.
Yes.
Right? So the capital improvement plan gets released on August 1st. Okay, so typically in August, the planning board reviews the capital improvement plan and then recommends it to the commission. Then it comes on to the commission, and the commission usually has a discussion session and public hearing in September on the capital. So prior to that, typically in July, my predecessor before me and now me has given a report on the goals of the comp plan that we've met, a comp plan progress update in July. So my thought backing up from that was, okay, in July every year, I'm giving an update to the planning board on these are the goals of the comp plan we've met. Well, the comp plan and the boards and authorities should work hand in hand together. So if we get a report from the boards in March of here's all the things we did in the past year, that feeds right into that July update.
Okay,
And so new members start beginning of April. And then the way I kind of laid it out was in April, they could talk about their work plan of what they want to get done that year. And then in May, they do their reorganization to basically just vote on who the chair and vice chair are and approve their work plan for the next year. So then that work plan is really like a May through March work plan. Then in March, they kind of issue their final report to me and say, this is what we've done to advance the goals of the comp plan in the past year.
I'm just gonna be a little devil's advocate to Andrew for a moment about thinking back in terms of what we do as a commission. And I found that reviewing over 100 resumes was pretty time consuming. Took several evenings and lots of fooling around. We're also, that's budget time. So if we move it back to like January, we have budget and we have to figure out how to, who we're appointing, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, I'm not trying to appointing. I keep the appointment date April 1st. I'm
Yeah.
gonna change
So
that.
just change the.
And I agree with Andrew about the,
Because you have to reorg in April. Who's gonna run the April meeting?
Yeah, I think that's actually what I was trying to get at was, April for me is when people are seated and the reorg occurs.
Okay.
As we do in January, they do in
Okay,
April.
got it.
I'm sorry if I
We're
wasn't
trying to
clear.
Get back to
Yeah.
January, I'm like, whoa,
yeah.
hit explosion.
I would think have reorg for the board in January because part of it, Ian's point about, where they line up in the comp plan, but the other is budget. So if someone's making
Yeah.
suggestions and so forth, well, we need to know board's opinions for budget by, let's say, summer, or fall. If they're just reorging in April, they may not get, so that's,
Yeah, but that's why we have a rolling, body. I mean, you're always going to have 6 people who have experience.
yes.
Who will be, the new chairs who have experience on the
Right.
board of at least, a period of time. And, I think that.
Right.
Again, we have new commissioners. And they have to jump right in and get going. It's kind of the same dynamic. It's just pushed to April because, that's,
Yeah.
our process has to get. I don't want to shorten our time frame. I want to give the, we need to, Ann's point, we need some time to get.
Yeah, that's not gonna happen.
No,
we're
we're
not
not
doing that. I was just,
Yeah, when do the boards do their work?
where the board's reporting out. Well, and so the thought is we look at timeline, whatever saying. The plan for parks is an example to say, okay, typically they say, okay, budget's done, now January, what are we thinking about?
Yeah.
Our request for next year, in the summer, we're looking at what parks we're gonna go to it. So that they've got to give us some direction, so by the time we get to budget time, certainly November 1. What are their focuses, and so that's why they had really
Yeah.
hitting that ground running.
Parks and sports.
January
goals
1 as
spent,
opposed to
right.
starting April 1.
That work plan and the recommendation for the CIP, sorry, took a lot of time for parks and sports.
Yeah, well, I think that's where I
Several
think,
weeks.
I think a lot of this does boil down to having some structure that is provided essentially by staff.
Right.
To say, now we are here, let's have this discussion.
Right.
Knowing that it's going to be a rolling process, right, and we're going to see transitions.
But it's not one discussion to get their CIP recommendations, or one discussion to get their work plan. It was 2 or 3, which takes 2 or 3 months.
That's
That's how it's been done.
Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah, well, I think,
So in appendix D, I
Yeah.
kind of started drafting a potential schedule of how everything can kind of feed together.
Right.
Looking at kind of both commission staff and advisory boards and how everything fit with
Mhm.
both the budget process and the commission reorg meeting and when the commission typically does their retreat to set goals, because those goals that the commission sets usually in February or March, then feed into what skill sets do we want on our boards when we make appointments in late March? And then what are the work plans of those boards gonna be once they start working on those in April, May timeframe?
Good.
So in that version, CIP requests are submitted in May, which is how both sports and parks did it, but it took the March and April meeting to get there.
Yeah.
So as long as they're starting it beforehand.
And in January, you kind of know who's terming off and who's not. So it's not like it's a big surprise in January. Going, yeah, I know you're quote short timer because that person's
So
getting.
here, do this work.
That's up to the board to see how they want to
Okay.
allocate.
I can give my 2 cents just for a second. I think this new structure is gonna solve a lot of communication issues too. Because it was just very heavy before, and I know the problem, at least in my experience with the boards that I sat in on and went to very briefly. The problem was not that the boards themselves and the members of the boards don't communicate. It was just very tough for all of us being on a lot of boards and for staff having to deal with so many boards. And, you know, I think the lines of communication with this new structure will facilitate a little bit better communication. I also think from the first, in particular, Keith and Ian, I think have had a pretty good handle on this transition. The memo that they've outlined makes a lot of sense to me when they first showed it to us, and I think it's gotten better since then. So like, this is one of the situations I think we could probably just get out of the way and it's gonna work out pretty well.
I agree. I think at this point, it really is getting down to the weeds of what individual boards, you know, are doing, what is unique to each one, and how do we just make sure that it's kind of weaved in structurally. Yeah, again, I think for me, to your point, Commissioner Grella, it's, you know, we've had so much, right, round and round. People haven't known how do I engage through the process? And a few of the boards have been very effective and others have just really struggled. So how do we create clear paths? Because I think that will make it easier for people to see and engage and feel like they're participating more.
It's been a lot of info, it's been a lot of work. It's been a lot of different groups working on the same thing or similar things. Nobody's fault on any sides of the table as to, you know, why some, you know, clarity, better clarity could have been there, but I think this structure takes care of it. I think the organization that's put in place for, you know, standardizing these things, I think that would be a really good precursor to, and over the last year or two, Andrew's been pretty clear about telling us, and I think we've all been vocal with our groups, you know, you need to get this in. If you want to affect change in a budget, this is when it needs to happen. So when we talk about it, just in my experience, I think we've all been pretty good about that in the last probably 2 years. Certainly more visible, more vocal on that. So, you know, I think this is in really good shape. I think it's ready to just get done.
Well,
So let's
just
go
on that
through the
note,
meeting.
I want to say, I hear 3 definitive votes for the reorg date of either January, April, or just let you decide.
I'm
Let's say
okay
April.
working through it this way and we'll revise it as we go and, you know, if it doesn't work, we'll change it.
Phil didn't review this draft before I gave it to the commission, so I'm sure Phil will have some additional comments as well.
Yeah.
Just.
He wants February.
Actually makes me feel like I did a decent job of Phil, only has 1 comment, so, okay. On the note of meeting standardization, I'll breeze through this, but, you know, standard parliamentary procedures, standard agendas. My idea would be to do a Robert's Rules of Order training for all of our board members to,
Fabulous.
as part of their orientation. And most of it's just simple stuff, you know, how you make a motion and all comments go to the chair, all that good stuff. And standardization of agendas for all boards. And then my other idea was standard, obviously we have standard meeting dates and times for our boards now. On the very last page of the thing, the second part of Appendix D,
Right.
I had put out a potential standardized meeting schedule essentially with all of our advisory board meetings starting at the same time of day. And then also having all of our meetings essentially on Tuesdays and Wednesdays to give us the flexibility that if there is some kind of holiday that pushes something back, you know, we've had holidays where our commission meeting had to move to Wednesday, and then we had to reshuffle a bunch of advisory board stuff, but then that advisory board meeting could just bump to Thursday because Thursdays are all open.
Before we talk about dates, could we go back to the standardized section of the other parts, the standardized agenda for all boards? There's usually a commissioner update and then the staff update at the top of our meetings. And was that included in liaisons?
Yeah, it's in.
In Appendix A, on the second page, I included a sample agenda
It's there.
of how it would look.
Yeah, very
So,
Awesome. And then
yes, that's
Appendix A,
Appendix A, page 2.
two.
Had a sample agenda on it.
Perfect. Chairperson's report, citizens comments, staff liaison. Awesome.
Liaison subcommittees, all that.
Great.
Yes.
Just in
Thank you.
turn, this, I think these documents work nicely too on the new website with the structure we have there when people request information about how many requests do you get for process on traffic board, right? Like, what do I do? How do I do it? I think this makes it easier to have this packet on those individual website links, because now we have like, I want to say mission, vision, some basic information, agendas, things like that, but this is a nice template, standardization. We could say, go to this link. You've got a pull down of exactly what you would expect at these meetings. You know where you'd be able to plug in and what you need to do, how much time is there for it. I think this will work out nice.
On the meeting dates times, this is not set in stone by any means. This was just my ideas. But one of the thoughts I did kind of put into this, when I was trying to decide who was meeting when, was the idea that staff liaisons would only have like one night meeting per week. So I picked like the planning board that I have to go to, then there wouldn't be a Wednesday meeting that I would have to go to. That makes it. So the idea of, you know, staff liaisons,
Good.
trying to structure it so that the staff liaison doesn't have 2 night meetings they have to go to any given week. That may get tweaked a little with commission meetings, because obviously depending on who's presenting in discussion session, you may have more people coming to those, but I tried to be cognizant of staff time when I was piecing these together. So that's just my idea for right now, open to further discussion on that, and really don't have to make a decision on that until we advertise when the board meetings are at the beginning of the year.
And whatever it's worth, the emergency meeting is the 4th Wednesday of the month, which I see conflicts with resiliencies. Figure that one.
You said 7, 6:30, what time do you?
My idea was 7. yeah.
Okay,
It just happens to be that one has got that many different municipalities that may, you know, maybe a harder one for us to have changed.
is 7 good with staff?
My thought with 7 was that if any boards needed to have an exec session beforehand with the solicitor, that they would have the ability to do that at like 6 o'clock. So for board members who may work till 5 o'clock, that gives them some time to get here from wherever they may be working. And then, you know, if they needed to do an exec session.
I've never seen an exec session. I wouldn't play it bad.
Only by judicious,
I won't be planning, but planning is just one board. I just want to make sure it works for staff to start their meeting at 7, when we can maybe start at 6 or 6:30 and leave for home a little earlier.
We can,
It's just a long day.
we can, you know, decide that later on too. I was just, you know, my thought was standard of
Yeah.
6.
Cool. Me too.
Whatever we want.
Eric's
Really,
fine.
the big picture point is we should have a standing meeting time.
Six.
All right, I mentioned the transitional seats. I pretty much talked about how this would work. Basically, the commission would decide which board members to offer a transitional seat to, and then once the commission makes that decision, I gave you a list of the board members that right now, this is appendix A of the transition plan document. I gave you a list of the 22 current board members who would be eligible for the transition seat. So basically, the commission can decide at a later date which ones they would want to offer the transitional seat to. Staff would reach out to those people, say, are you interested in a seat? And then, you know, tell us your top 2 boards that you might be interested in moving to, because I know there's a couple people on this list that, one, for example, who's on the Economic Development Council, who cares a lot about mobility stuff. So he may be more interested in moving to the mobility board than the resiliency board, for example. So, you know, ask these people, what are their top 2 boards they would like? And then the commission can kind of make decisions on which new boards they want to appoint them to.
I'm not sure what all the initials are, so EOB is Equal Opportunity Board?
Mhm.
Okay, PIB?
Parking,
Okay,
no, Pension
parking.
Investment Board, sorry.
Oh,
PFB is Parking Facilities Board, PAB is Parks Advisory Board, PIB is Pension Investment Board.
whoa, okay, so the parking facilities, parking is PF,
Yes,
okay, and then pension is PI?
yes.
Okay.
Yes. So in theory, like I mentioned, that if the commission wanted the 22 advisory board members to be able to transition to new seats, in theory, we could have, you know, the 4 CRB members move to the Civic Engagement Board.
Right.
We could have
You
the,
just love doing it.
I do. We could have the ESP members move. Board.
I guess I'm playing with the drawing.
Facilities board, sports advisory board, the traffic board. So in theory, as you can see, there's not 9 blocks in any of these.
So plenty of room for new
So there are
folks.
plenty of room for new folks.
We have some continuity.
And we may have some of these people drop off over the next year that decide they don't want to serve on a board anymore, move out of town or whatever. Or there may be some of them that the commission decides they don't want to offer transition seats to. So really my purpose of this slide is just saying, if you want to offer transitional seats to all 22 people, there is space for them. And like I said, there may even be some people that want to move around to different spots, like the one person on the EDC who might want to be on the mobility board or something like that.
So
So
we're only talking about 1 year terms here, right? This is a 1 year term for all these people.
not
Term expires
necessarily.
2025.
So
Oh,
my,
okay.
my idea would be that
Did you-
once we decide,
Eat it all.
once,
Sorry.
once we decide who we are offering transitional seats to and which boards they are going to, going back to this slide, the commission would decide, okay, who are the 3 people that are gonna get a 1 year term? If there's more than that, who gets a 2 year term? So my thought was the transitional people fill up the bottom spots first, so the newly appointed people would get the longer terms. So you fill up, if you have 5 people that are interested in civic engagement, 3 of them would get 1 year terms and 2 of them would get 2 year terms. The commission would just decide that when you make your appointment.
Okay, got it.
I'm done.
Okay.
Perfect.
I got you.
Unless anybody else has questions, that's the key. Commissioners have any questions?
I know.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah, it was.
Mostly on the end, very well done.
Thank you. Ian. I appreciate it.
So,
What decisions
Nice.
do you need from us?
good question. Do I have the thumbs up from the commission generally on this to now give it to the staff liaison so they
Yes.
can start
Yes.
preparing their
Yes.
board for this?
Give it to the staff. Yes.
Okay. I will do
Questions
that.
about.
Rock and roll.
Yes,
Yeah, the
we're
staff
good.
board.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you all for reading through my very lengthy document.
Thanks, Ian.
I enjoyed it.
I read it all.
Right away, as I think.
Oh, you-
Thanks, Scott.
That is really the suckiest. Excuse my word.
We recovered from that presentation. Who wants to talk about?
I was in the Caribbean, I couldn't read. What?
Anyway, the whole thing.
You board stuff?
Yes, who wants to talk?
I can go.
Go ahead.
You go.
No, after you, please.
All right, so library board, National Library Week coming up April 24th. Your plant sale is May 13th. Go online, order your plants. It's a big fundraiser. Outreach, their fundraiser is May 4th. It's downtown at the Renaissance.
And tickets are on sale now?
Tickets are on sale now. Go to Outreach's website and get it. Little bit of an update on the Community Relations Board. Kudos to Chief Haberman, worked with him last week on an issue, a mental health issue in our neighborhood. Handled professionally, handled well. Not sure the outcome in the end, meaning going forward is great, but that's not due to the fault of staff. That's due to the problems with structure of how we deal with mental health or don't deal with it, really being more important. But thank you very much. I appreciate the communication and sort of the ongoing follow through on it. It was terrific. I think that's it for me. That was community relations. MRTSA doesn't meet till the end of the month, so we've got to wait for that.
School board, school board is having final meetings this weekend with potential superintendent. So that'll be the final round. So
Does that mean final interviews?
yeah, so hopefully their next meeting, our next meeting, we should have a little bit more information.
Thanks. How many people are they bringing in?
They've only interviewed a couple that have made it to the final round. So I don't know exactly how many are going to be this week, but yeah, I'll find out. But they've had quite a long process and very similar to what we did, a lot of different people and, there was some filtering there before it got to the board too, so. And then, so for they're finishing budget conversations. So far, the administration is recommending a 1.2 mil increase on the tax side, so, that's what they're looking at right now for a recommended increase on the school tax.
Did they, I don't have the terminology right, but there's something they can pass.
They did not choose to exercise that option that allows them to go above whatever correct me if I'm wrong here, whatever.
3%, wherever there's a frozen.
There is a number that you can't go up without
Yeah,
Right.
they decided not to exercise that option, so
Okay,
whatever this number ends up being will be within those parameters.
okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
So far it's 1.2. I know they still have a little bit of a gap to make up. You know, what does that equate to? I emailed Andrew. I think he's still on average home price. It's probably a couple $100 a year.
My boards haven't met.
Report from the Caribbean.
Yeah, my boards haven't met. They meet Thursday, two of them meet Thursday and one Monday, so they haven't met in about a month. No report.
Andrew?
Parks Board met, they are continuing their amazing work. I'm always impressed with everything they're doing. Obviously, a lot of discussions about signs going on, about finalizing the new sign designs. So that is progressing. And discussions about standardized trail requirements. So what would the design be for trails in parks? Right, and if you go through Bird Park or any of our parks, they are random trails, not necessarily, you know, the kind of ADA or maybe not even ADA accessible, but you know, the wider fresh gravel standard trails. So a lot of discussion about how do we start thinking about some of these more structural guidelines that the Parks Board can you know, help on. So they're doing great work, continuing lots of fronts. Very impressed with that whole group. Connect met here, so thank you to staff for facilitating hosting Connect, had an executive offsite. Thank you, Commissioner Slaughter Wilson, for coming. It was a great discussion.
I'm sorry.
Oh, you were you? I'm sorry. So many things going on.
This is the group.
You were on the, yeah, you were on vacation. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I was there.
Everybody. It was a very good meeting. Connect continues to do a lot of great work, especially on climate action planning. They are doing a lot of work to coordinate various programs that municipalities are working on. We are very engaged. Ian and Greg are engaged very much with Connect, trying to move some of these programs forward. We are also trying to help the school district, with some of these programs, like solar programs. Again, if we can, if we're aware of something, we try to make the school district aware so that they can engage. I've been made aware also that there's discussions about it's not composting, it's a bio waste. That's not bio waste. There's another it's like a forgetting the name of it. Anyway, there's a program that the school district is looking at about accelerated composting systems. It's an innovative company out of Carnegie Mellon. They've got a few places in Swissvale. The name of it, what it's called, will come to my mind. They're looking at doing that. Yeah, three exactly. What I'm stressing out about other things.
Yeah.
So yeah, trying to facilitate that conversation as well. Make sure that again we're being innovative in terms of how we think about waste programs, things that the school district is doing. I'm trying to help facilitate that. So Connect is facilitating in a lot of different areas, and we are just starting conversations of something I raised randomly was, how could we help some of the smaller municipalities, with chasing a lot of these dollars that are coming from the federal government right now. A representative or person that works at the Department of Energy was saying, look, we're giving away like billions of dollars, and this region needs to come to the table, but with 130 municipalities, it's really hard to, for a lot of these municipalities to even realize the dollars are there, let alone effectively chase them. So how do we bring municipalities together? I opened my mouth, said, why don't we create an authority to do that? They seem to be running down this path right now. So trying to think that through. I'm talking to people at the county about how we might structure something like that. To make it so that, again, anybody should be able to leverage something like that, right? That centralized administrative function. Connect could conceptually is trying to do that, but they don't necessarily have the authority. They're just there to facilitate. So how do we create more robust mechanisms for municipalities to engage and leverage funding opportunities?
I just saw an email where they said something out about, hey, we can help you as a municipality secure funding.
Yeah, they help, but it's on the edge.
Email, but at least they're
Yeah.
finding.
Yeah,
Some people to
yeah.
sign up.
That's exactly it. They're helping at the edges, right, where they can bolster, municipal staffs, but they don't have the authority to really drive programs.
Right.
So again, thinking about how do we, leverage some of these legal structures to bring some of these municipalities together to be more effective. So that conversation is just getting started, but interesting discussions in that front as well. That's all I've got.
Great, thank you. Planning board actually is gonna have a busy meeting next week. 3 items on the agenda. One is to review the fire department training facility down at the Works Yard. Another is a proposal for development at a property at near Cedar Boulevard, the intersection of Cedar Boulevard and Gilkison. I'm sorry, Ian, I cannot remember the third project.
It is to subdivide the duplex on Cedar Boulevard into 2 lots so that they can be sold. The
Okay.
Duplex was already built.
I don't know if anybody heard that. So anyway, so that's busy, of course, reviewing the latest on the comp plan. So
So new development on Gilkes. That's what's the.
that's being
Didn't know
proposed.
there
So
was a
that-
place for something there.
There is
Yeah,
a
it's big.
large piece of property right there by the corner, and sounds like someone's interested in developing it. So, anyways, that's a scoop. So that's gonna be,
It's residential.
I believe it's residential.
Good.
So
And
it's
single
residential.
family attached homes.
And how many in the?
10.
And
10.
10 single family attached and one of the existing structures would be rehabbed as part of the plan.
Oh, okay. Is, which side? Is it the Public Works side or no?
It's the gallery side.
Gilkison.
Oh,
It's the front.
Focus in the gallery side.
The gallery on the other side's a creek.
Gallery,
Yeah.
just right, where old Wilkerson is, just.
Yes.
kind of, you know,
Okay, between Old Gilkison and Gilkison. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So it's a big space there.
Access, Old
Yes.
Gilkison, yes.
Exactly. So good, so, anyway, so,
Sidewalk.
all right, so that. Call that a meeting, we are adjourned, see you at the big room.
Yes,